Hello, you're back with Ben, and this is the DIY Homefront. Today on the channel, we're going to be working on string lights. You know, those lights we put up in the yard to make everything look pretty. Well, unfortunately, when you put them up, they look great, but over time, things happen. So let's look at my lights, and then we'll get to working on them. Well, this is our gazebo in the garden, and it looks pretty nice. But as you get closer to the string lights, you realize they are really covered in algae and pollen, and they just look ugly. So let's clean these up, and hopefully that's all we'll have to do. All we need is some glass cleaner, and we can just spray these off. Now, unfortunately, these are plastic, so over time they end up yellowing. But you really have to clean up these bulbs pretty good before you can figure out if the plastic is yellowed or if it's just the pollen on them. I'm going to go ahead and take this off, and we'll take a look at it compared to a new one. Now, I bought a couple of these strings of lights all at the same time, and for whatever reason, the squirrels like to chew them off. They don't do it out here in the garden, but I've got a string of lights that's in between two trees, and they just like to chew them off. But what I did do is I saved them all, and now I'm glad because that is yellowed from the sun. That's plastic and it's never gonna unyellow. But what I can do is I can take these and very carefully remove the bulb and be careful not to knock off that black spacer. And then I can screw it back in and basically have a new bulb. Well, hello, enjoy this video, and if you like it, go to my channel and check out my other videos. And then while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and subscribe. Now, do you see this little tiny piece right here? That's a little gasket that's supposed to make a watertight seal that keeps water from getting in these. You might want to check when you're working on your lights to make sure that that's not torn or missing, because your lights will end up filling up with water. And even though I'm going to throw this yellow one away, I'm going to save this little gasket. Something else that happens is you might have these fill up with water and the bulb stops working, and most people don't realize that these bulbs, most of them just plug in and out. There's just a little plug in there. So I'm going to save a couple of these bulbs too. Or maybe instead of bulb, I should call it a filament. Either way, it's an LED bulb. Well, I am going to go ahead and take all these bulbs down, and I'll clean them up, and then if they're yellow, I'll replace them with newer bulbs. But one thing that is neat is you see how the lights are dimming? They're not actually dimming. It's just that the camera rate and the refresh rate of the LED bulbs are different, and they go in and out of sync, making it appear that the bulbs are dimmer. Well, I didn't have enough to replace every one of them, but I have probably done this at some point in the past. And it seems like the one that's in the far center in the back, it may just be out of the sun enough that it's not getting yellowed by the sun. But there you have it. That looks a whole lot better. And this is what we're left with. Got a bunch of little O-rings and a couple of lights. And this is our trash. We'll get rid of that. Well, the next lights we're going to work on are in the middle of my yard, and I think I made a video a couple of years ago about replacing them. But unfortunately, shortly after I put up those lights, the squirrels decided to chew on them. I don't know if you can see the string, but it's missing most of the lights. And then there's a couple of them that actually have water in the lights. Now, if the bulbs are made out of plastic, I'm going to show you a secret you can do. What you can do is you can take a drill and put a hole in the bottom, and it will cause the water to drain out. And the lights that I'm going to put back up, I'm going to do that. I'm going to drill a small hole in all of them, so I don't have to worry about the water. It'd be one thing if these were really close to the ground and I could reach them, but these are way up in the air and it can be a little difficult. If you put the hole in the bottom, you might end up, I don't know if you can see the spider in there, but I think I'd rather have a bug inside of it than I would have it full of water, especially when they're that high up in the air. I mean, I've got to climb my ladder and get pretty high up in the air to get to those. Now, I've had these for years, and I got this because it had 2 strands. Got a couple of the bulbs that fell off after the squirrels chewed them. But the thing I like best about these LED lights is that the power supply is actually separate from the lights and just gets hooked up to it and then connected to a 110 power source. Which means if you need to replace the lights, you can do that without having to rewire everything. The only downside to having plastic bulbs is over time they will yellow. But since they're made out of plastic, I can drill a hole in the bottom of them, and that's what I'm going to do next. I've got a small drill bit. I'm going to go for the very center, and I'm just going to try not to let my drill wobble. And that's it. I'm going to do that for each one of these lights. Now, if this were to cause the filament to go bad, I've got plenty of replacements, don't I? Alright, well, I've got my box of black zip ties, but it looks like we're just going to use this size zip tie for everything. Something else I've learned is let's plug in the string lights and make sure that they work. But most importantly, the last time I did this, I took down all the lights before I put the new ones up. And that was a big mistake because the spacing, it took a long time to get the spacing right. So this time I'm gonna put the new lights up as I take the old lights down, and I will just end up zip tying it to the exact same spots, and I won't have to spend an hour going back and forth trying to get the spacing right. Well, I'll try to make sure you get a good shot of everything going on, but to be honest, I don't have a camera stand that's going to get it up that high, and for the most part, I'm going to need both hands. Now, when I need to connect these new lights, it's really easy. Well, the only thing that happens is it just screws into the plug that's already there. And you can see the way I have these zip tied. Like I said, I had small ones and then large ones holding the lights. Well, even if I struggled to show it, I'm going to end up cutting one zip tie and taking down the light, and then I'll put the new string of lights up and zip tie it to the same place. And that's what I've done here. So now I've got the string started, and I can disconnect the power cord and hook the new lights up to it. And here you can see how the plug is keyed, so there's no way to hook it up wrong. So you don't have to worry about reversing the positive and negative terminals for the LEDs. Okay, you can see we got a light, and the thing to do is just to look and see, and all of our lights work. Now, unfortunately, as I disconnect these and put them back, I'm just going to have to put the camera down on the ground, and you'll have to watch from there because I need both my hands if I'm going to do this safely. Well, you wouldn't know it, but I've got myself fast forwarded at 10 times the normal speed, and it still seems like it's taking me a long time to get anything done. But if I just keep working at it, eventually I will get it, and of course, I did. So if you want to see more about these lights being installed, I'll leave a link at the very end of this video so you can go right to it. Well, at the end of the string lights is another one of those plugs, the same kind that we hooked up to the power connection. And that would allow you to keep adding as many rows of string lights as you needed to until you had whatever area you wanted covered. And I have just got my own homegrown plug that terminates the string lights, so I don't have to worry about a connection being open to the elements or water. Alright, you can see how the end comes on it. Here you can see how I've used the zip ties to hold the string lights to the cable that runs between the trees. I've got one at each light and one in between each light. Should be done with the zip ties, and I can put away some of my mess. The last little bit of lights are up there on the back deck. But we're gonna wait till they're in the shade before we tackle that project. It's pretty hot out here. All right, well, it's the next day early in the morning while it's still cool. Well, here's our string of lights, and these are pretty cool because we can do one of two things. We could do it like the other one where we take off just the glass, and you can see there's a little O-ring on this one too. Or these are meant that you could replace individual lights, they plug into it. And that's a really great feature because that means I don't have to worry about rewiring these every time I want to clean up the bulbs. And you can see by the way this string is how much easier just replacing the bulbs would be. And check these ones out. We got a bulb that's still lit, that's full of water. And check out this one. I don't think it could get any fuller of water, could it? Completely full. And even though the box is a little worse for the wear, I've got a string of lights. Right here that we can use as parts, and you can see I've already robbed a couple of the lights off of here. Now these are glass, and there's nothing I can do. I can't drill a hole in these to let water out, but I can clean them and they won't ever yellow. So we'll just start going down these lights one by one. I also like the fact the hole's big. That makes it easy to get your finger in if you want to clean out both sides. Like I said, you can see these are wired in. And these have an O-ring, which is like a rubber band, which really isn't. Look how dirty that is. I think I'm going to replace some of these. They are like rubber bands, aren't they? And as they deteriorate over time, I'm assuming that's how the water gets in. At least that's the way it's supposed to work, but it doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason on which bulbs fill up with water. Now, I purchased these in January of 2019 and installed them shortly after that, and this is the second time I've had to do this to these lights. Well, these lights are 110, but these are LEDs, and LEDs need a positive and negative. So part of that circuit board is going to change the voltage to DC voltage. But we can only put these in one way. You can see how there's a little lip on one side that's larger than the other. Now the ones that aren't leaking water probably have a good gasket. Now I'm just going to keep pulling the bulbs off of the lights and getting them cleaned up, and we'll see where we end up at. Well, that one is broke and there's no gasket. So that one's probably going to be trash. Well, once I got the lights cleaned up, it was time to put them back on. Now I probably had to replace about 4 of these lights with brand new ones because they were just in that bad a shape. Well, there we go. I cleaned up and we still have about 10 lights to use. These were all just trash, or I think some of them the water was making the circuit. And these are all old and brittle, and when you rub them around in your hands, you see all the how it's just totally deteriorating. But there we go. And I ended up using all but one of the little gaskets I had ended up saving from the other string lights. Well, there you have it. You can see how these lights turned out. Everything looks oh so pretty at night. And I guess we should walk out here and turn on the lights to the garden. These lights that go between these 2 trees cast the perfect amount of light, just enough to see, but still keep the ambience looking so good. And because I drilled a hole in all these lights, I will never have to worry about any water filling up with them. I just need to try to make sure the squirrels don't chew them off. And here's the lights in this gazebo that we got finished up. It's amazing how bright they seem at night. I tell you what, if you plan on using your yard at night, having these lights really make the outside attractive and accessible. Well, there you go. That's the end of another project, and it's all finished up. I wish I could do something once and it would last forever, but it never does. There's always maintenance. Well, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, check out my playlist, and I'll see you in the next video.